DevOps may be the most dynamic tech career that you've never heard of. It's lucrative and companies are hiring. But what is DevOps? Is it really lucrative? And why aren't people talking about it? I'm going to break down why a career in DevOps is worth thinking about. If you've never heard the term before, DevOps is an abbreviation for development and operations. It used to be one of the hottest buzzwords in technology, but it takes a special person to be a DevOps engineer. There's high demand for this skill set because DevOps engineers are hard to find. Do you have what it takes? And should you consider being a DevOps engineer? Let's find out. But before we do, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and send this video out to someone interested in technology, because we're on a mission to help as many people as possible. When you think about tech jobs, there's been the age-old issue, development versus operations. And we all know what developers are. They're the ones writing the application. They're the coders. That makes sense, right? That's easy to figure out. But what exactly is operations? Operations is responsible for operating the application. So that means taking the code from the developers and putting it into the production environments for everyone to use. It means ensuring that the applications are up and running. It means providing support for those applications. And if you're at home thinking, this still doesn't make any sense. I write programs. I ensure that it stays up. I provide application support. Well, you wouldn't be wrong. But when you get into an enterprise organization, the development and operational tasks are separated. The conventional wisdom was, we pay developers to develop. We don't want them dealing with operational tasks. That's not an effective or efficient use of resources. We can hire support people to handle the day-to-day operations of those applications, and if someone reports a bug, the app support teams can provide that information to the developers. And that's the way it went for a while. But as you can imagine, that separation creates a lot of finger-pointing, a lot of, well, that's not my job. I wrote the application. You support it. Well, how can I support it if I don't know how you wrote it? We've all been there, and I'm sure we can all relate. Enter DevOps engineers. They're the ones meant to bridge the gap between development and operations. You can think of them as the lubricant that keeps an engine going. They aren't really developers, and they aren't really operations. Their roles are kind of ambiguous, but without them, everything grinds to a halt. DevOps engineers are the abstractors or the optimizers. They're the ones working to optimize through automation. And if I lost you, let me give you a concrete example. Let's say a developer writes an application. What the developer sees on his screen and what actually runs in the environment are two totally different things. In the old days, the developer would have to run a build or package his code into an executable format. The obvious questions become, how'd they do that? Are there other dependencies? Where does this application live? Which servers are affected? This is where the DevOps engineer comes in. If we consider the previous example, every time the developer creates new code, he'll need to build and package it, then send it on to operations for deployment. That is a repeatable task, something that will need to be done over and over. So why can't that be automated? A DevOps engineer can automate that process, abstract that away from the developer. This automation can package the build and deploy that application, leaving the developer only responsible for checking in code. Furthermore, the operation team no longer needs to copy files to the servers, since that'll all be handled through automation. This is what I meant when I said DevOps engineers optimize through automation. But let's take that a step further. Every time code gets updated, the application needs to be tested. What if we could automate testing through an automated build process? See, you get the idea. DevOps engineers really are the glue between development and operations and process automation. But it's really much more than that. DevOps engineers have a different mindset. You can think of them as silo busters or people that get things done. You see, in order to automate anything, you have to have a solid, repeatable process. How many times have you seen this? One team does things one way and another team does things another way, yet a third team does it yet a different way. Inconsistent processes like that can't be automated. So it's up to the DevOps engineer to ask the question, why? Why do we do things the way that we do? Is there a better way to do things? Who do we need to talk to? How do we make this process consistent? Remember when I said that it takes a special person to be a DevOps engineer? This is kind of what I was talking about. It takes someone that isn't afraid to ask questions. It takes someone that isn't afraid to come up with solutions. Someone that isn't afraid to step outside the technology box to talk to an end user, for example. You have to be someone that takes initiative. And because of that, DevOps engineers are often seen as the people implementing solutions. There's a level of responsibility that comes with that. Oftentimes, DevOps engineers can be seen as the subject matter experts. It seems like they know everything about everything. People come to them whenever they have a question. So being a DevOps engineer comes with a different type of accountability, and not everyone's built for that. You have to be a well-rounded individual to be a successful DevOps engineer. You have to be able to cross over to speak to people outside of technology while still being tech savvy. Maybe tech savvy is an understatement, more like a tech expert. Technology moves fast, and it's often the DevOps engineers that are the first to use the new technologies. This is what makes the role so dynamic. DevOps engineers are always evolving and learning new technologies while also looking for ways to automate and optimize. There are so many things to keep track of, which is why the job is so engaging. There are many things you can do within this role, but that's also what makes it challenging. Some would call it demanding. And as with many demanding jobs, there aren't enough people to meet demand, which means that companies must provide higher compensation to lure people away. But is it really so demanding? Is it really so challenging? If you ask a DevOps engineer, they'd probably tell you that the job is dynamic and rewarding. But if you asked a junior DevOps engineer, they'd tell you that it's overwhelming. Part of the reason that DevOps seems so daunting is because there's no real specific discipline or path for DevOps. If you go to university, you won't find a DevOps track or a DevOps degree. So let me get this right. A DevOps engineer is basically someone that knows everything about everything. They're abreast of all the latest technology, but must also be able to speak with developers and non-technical business people alike. They're always on the lookout to create efficiencies while also being the go-to subject matter experts for seemingly everything. The DevOps engineer is the jack of all trades for everyone and everything. Yet there's no real education or training path for DevOps engineers? Yep, that's right. That's what also makes it so dynamic, in demand, and lucrative. For some people, that's part of the allure of being a DevOps engineer. As a DevOps engineer, you're able to do all kinds of things without being pigeonholed into a particular box. So ask yourself, does that sound exciting or does it sound daunting? Are you the type of person that gets things done no matter what? If that sounds like you, then this may be the perfect role. But how does anyone get into DevOps? It's like saying there's no medical programs out there, but we want to hire doctors. I get it. If you want to become a DevOps engineer, start with these two things, the DevOps Roadmap and the DevOps Handbook. I'll leave links to both of those in the description below. The DevOps Roadmap is a great tool to show you what you should learn. You can think of it like your curriculum. It'll tell you to get some hands-on experience with a programming language, Python or Java or what have you. Learn some Linux, get used to the terminal and scripting. The roadmap lays it all out for you as far as tooling and technologies. Then the DevOps Handbook really digs into what DevOps is, how to create efficiencies that increase speed to market, how to create feedback loops, how to leverage this well-oiled machine called DevOps, which will require a huge shift in your mindset. The DevOps Roadmap and the DevOps Handbook are two of the best resources to get you started in the DevOps world. But don't just take my word for it. If you want to hear what a real DevOps engineer has to say, watch this video where we talk about what it's really like to be a DevOps engineer. And if you find value from this content, click the subscribe button and leave a comment. Better yet, if we're missing the mark, go ahead and roast us in the comments.